Hold a smooth block of stone in your hand, about the size of a paperback. But look closer, and the lines start to resolve into something. Turn it over. One face is covered in fine scratched lines. Dozens of them, curving and branching and crossing over each other. At first, it looks like someone was just doodling, passing time by a fire. A river, forking. A ridge of hills. Little shapes that could be animals, clustered exactly where a herd would gather to drink. This stone was carved almost 14,000 years ago, by firelight, in a cave in the north of Spain. And a team of archaeologists who spent 15 years studying it reached a conclusion that people still argue about today. This scratched-up rock might be the oldest map on Earth. If they are right, we were drawing the world onto stone thousands of years before anyone wrote a single word. When you think map, you think of something modern. A folded paper map crammed into a glove box. The little blue dot on your phone, gliding along a glowing street. Satellites, GPS, Google. So it is easy to assume maps are a recent invention, that they arrived alongside writing, and cities, and empires that needed to know exactly where their borders ran. That map-making is a skill of the literate, organized world. But the urge behind a map, the need to take the space around you and pin it down onto a surface outside your own head, turns out to be far, far older than any of that. Older than writing, older than farming, older than the wheel. To find where it begins, we have to crawl into that cave in Spain. The cave is called Abounce, in Navarre, in the Basque Country of northern Spain. In 1993, archaeologists digging there pulled out a flat block of sandstone, roughly 7 inches by 5 and less than an inch thick. Its surface, a chaos of engraved lines. It went into storage, and for years, nobody was quite sure what they were looking at. Then a team led by the archaeologist Pilar Utrilla at the University of Zaragoza spent the better part of 15 years painstakingly tracing every scratch. In 2009, they published their conclusion in the Journal of Human Evolution. The engraving, they argued, is a map, a picture of the actual landscape around the cave as it looked at the end of the last ice age, about 13,600 years ago. There are the meandering curves of a river. There is a mountain, most likely the nearby peak they call San Gregorio. There are patches that seem to mark good places to ford the water and to hunt, and clustered among them, engraved herds of ibex and deer. Some of the team even suspect it records a specific hunt, where to go, which way to drive the animals, what you would find when you got there. It is not just a picture of a place. It looks like a plan of a place. Now, you should be a little suspicious here, and good archaeologists are. Human beings are pattern-hunting animals. We see faces in clouds and rabbits in the moon, and we are extraordinarily good at reading meaning into marks that never carried any. So how do you know a tangle of Ice Age lines is a deliberate map and not just decoration or an accident? Utrilla's team leaned on one thing above all else: correspondence. The lines do not just look vaguely map-like. Their layout, the team argues, matches the real geography around Abounce, the actual rivers and rises you would have walked through to reach the cave. When the marks on the stone line up with the land outside it, coincidence gets much harder to believe. It is still debated, but that matching is exactly why so many researchers take the claim seriously. And Abounce may not even be the oldest candidate. Go back further still, and further north, to a place called Pavlov in the Czech Republic. In 1962, archaeologists there found a piece of mammoth tusk, about 13 centimeters long, engraved with a pattern of lines and shapes. Some researchers who studied it argued that the carving corresponds to the real terrain nearby, the curve of a river, the slopes of the surrounding hills, which would make it a map some 25,000 years old, nearly twice the age of the Spanish stone. That claim is genuinely contested. Plenty of experts think the marks are decorative or symbolic and not geographic at all. But it points at something important. The impulse we are chasing did not switch on at one clean moment. It flickers in and out of the record, again and again, wherever people were trying to hold a landscape still in their minds. Then the picture gets richer and stranger. Around 8,600 years ago, in a sprawling mud-brick town called Çatalhöyük, in what is now Turkey, someone painted a mural across a wall. The excavator who found it, James Mellart, saw two things in it: In the foreground, a neat grid of boxes, stacked like the packed-together houses of the town itself, seen from above. And behind them, a great mound with dots spraying up and out of its top. He read it as a town plan with a volcano erupting over it. And there really is a twin-peaked volcano, Hassan Dag, visible from the site. If he was right, it is the oldest townscape we have. And here is a lovely twist. In 2014, geologists led by Axel Schmidt tested the volcano itself and found it truly did erupt right around then, roughly 9,000 years ago. The same window the mural was painted in. But, and this is the honest part, not everyone buys it. The archaeologist Stephanie Meese has argued the map is nothing of the kind, that the boxes are a geometric pattern, and the volcano is a leopard skin, a motif that appears all over Çatalhöyük's art. Two experts, one painting, two completely different worlds. We may never settle which is right. Now jump forward to a case where the map is unmistakable. In 1900, in western Brittany, a collector named Paul du Châtelier dug a large carved slab of rock out of a Bronze Age grave. It was strange, covered in swirling lines and cup marks, and for over a century, almost nobody paid it any attention. The stone even went missing for decades before being rediscovered in a castle cellar in 2014. Then, from 2017, Dr. Clément Nicolas and a team at Bournemouth University put it through high-resolution 3D scanning and realized what they had. The engraved lines connect repeated symbols into a network of paths and boundaries that matches, astonishingly well, the real valley of the river Odette in that corner of France. Carved around 1900 BC, the Saint-Belec slab is now considered the oldest known map of a territory anywhere in Europe. That is not folk art. That is a Bronze Age chief's kingdom, mapped in stone, and possibly smashed on purpose when that little kingdom finally fell. Now watch the ambition scale all the way up. Everything so far has been local. My river, my hills, my valley, my hunting ground. But at some point people tried to draw not a valley, but the whole world. The oldest surviving attempt sits today in the British Museum. It is a clay tablet, dug out of the ground at Sippar, in what is now Iraq, by the archaeologist Hormuzd Rassam in the 1800s, and carved around 2,600 years ago. We call it the Imago Mundi, the image of the world, and it is a world map, Babylonian style, a flat disk of land with the city of Babylon sitting proudly across the middle, the Euphrates running through it, and the whole thing ringed by a band of water they labeled the Bitter River, the salt sea at the edge of everything. Out beyond that sea, cuneiform notes describe strange, half-mythical regions. It is not accurate the way we would measure it, but it was never really trying to be. It is a statement about where the center of the world is, and of course, the center is home. And a map does not even have to be a picture at all. Out in the Pacific, the navigators of the Marshall Islands built maps you could never photograph from above, because they were not mapping land, they were mapping the sea. Using thin strips of coconut palm rib lashed into a delicate lattice, with small cowrie shells to mark the islands, they charted something invisible, the way ocean swells bend, curve, and collide as they wrap around the atolls. There were teaching charts, called matang, for learning the patterns, and larger charts, meadow and rebelib, for real voyages. But here is the incredible part. They were not drawn to scale, and they were never taken out onto the water. A navigator studied one on shore, memorized the behavior of the waves, then left it behind, and sailed by feel, reading the swells rolling and pitching under the hull of his canoe in the open ocean. That is not a decoration for a wall. That is an entire ocean, mapped in motion and memory. And that is the thing that finally ties every one of these together, across 40,000 miles and 25,000 years. Line them up. A scratched stone in Spain, a mammoth tusk in Moravia, a painted wall in Turkey, a carved slab in Brittany, a clay disc in Iraq, a lattice of sticks in the Pacific, and not one of them looks like the others. But every single one is doing the exact same thing. Each is taking the world that exists inside one human skull, the memory of the route to water, the shape of a coastline, where the herd gathers, how the swells move, and pushing it out onto a surface, so that it can be held and shared and outlive the one person who knew it. That is what a map actually is. Not paper, not North Up, not GPS. A map is externalized memory. It is the moment a human brain admits it cannot hold the whole world at once, and sets a piece of the world down, outside itself, where it will not be forgotten. And we were doing that long before we could write a word. So run the thread back through. 25,000 years ago, perhaps, someone at Pavlov cut a landscape into mammoth ivory. Around 14,000 years ago, in a bounce cave, a person engraved rivers and mountains and deer into a block of stone. By 9,000 years ago, at Çatalhöyük, someone may have painted their town beneath an erupting mountain. By 9,000 years ago, at Çatalhöyük, someone may have painted their town beneath an erupting mountain. By 9,000 years ago, at Çatalhöyük, someone may have painted their town beneath an erupting mountain. By 600 BC, mapmakers in Babylon were trying to draw the entire world onto a tablet of clay. And across the Pacific, islanders were mapping the ocean itself in sticks and shells. Different centuries, different continents, the very same restless human need to get the world out of the head and onto something you can point at, which brings it all the way back to you. Reach into your pocket right now, and you can pull out the whole planet on a sheet of glass. Pinch it, spin it, zoom into almost any street on Earth, and watch a little blue dot slide along it with your own body at the center of the map, exactly the way Babylon sat at the center of that clay disk. You do it a dozen times a day without a flicker of thought. But you are not doing anything new. You are doing precisely what that person in Abant's cave was doing 14,000 years ago, hunched by the fire, scratching a river into a stone so they would not lose the shape of the land. You are handing your sense of where you are to a surface outside your own skull and trusting it to remember for you. The technology is unrecognizable. The impulse is identical. Every single time you glance down at a map, you are reaching for the oldest trick our species ever found to make the world small enough to hold in your hands. All the research is linked in the description.